you never brought us up like that. I mean, you brought us up to be strong, independent women who can, you know, do anything that they want to do and don't need to rely on anyone for that. Hi guys, and welcome back to LVH Talks. I hope you're all doing well. So today I have my mum with me. This is Julie.
Hi.
And she's going to help me talk about today's subject, which is sexism and whether or not it's still alive in today's society. So it's quite a big subject, so bear with us. But if you've got any comments, please post them below. It'd be great to hear what you have to say. Okay, so sexism. When I initially thought about this subject, I didn't think I'd had a lot of experience with it. I actually felt quite good about that as well, that I couldn't pinpoint loads of different experiences that I'd had. But then I looked up the definition and realised that I've actually encountered it a lot in my life and not realised it. So when you actually look up the definition of sexism, obviously it talks about one gender feeling like they are superior to another. But another thing it mentions is actually stereotyping, which I feel like happens all the time. I feel like I've been stereotyped my whole life as a female, and that actually quite surprised me. But what have you experienced? Because I know you've been through it quite a bit.
Well, I think in the early days when I was working, I was in the middle of adopting my first child. And at the same time, I could have gone for a promotion at work, which was on the cards. And the reason that I didn't get promoted was because I was going to have a child. And back in the day, that was quite accepted, but it wouldn't be accepted today.
It's ridiculous, that, isn't it? Because you're penalised for doing something that only women can do. You're penalised for something that only, it seems ridiculous to me. And even just that you were saying as well before, that even just the possibility of you having children can give people the right.
I think, truthfully, in lots of ways, that still is applicable today in some respects, in that when people are considering, employers are considering taking on a new employee, they do take into consideration the age of perhaps a female who they might consider wanting to employ, whether she could be considering having a family. I still think it does go against females in that role. It's always about the children and family where women are concerned.
But do you not think that that's also a lot of the time because that's the only thing that really or massively differentiates between the two genders? Like, it's something, it almost feels like it's a bit of an excuse. Like, this is something that we can hold against them. I mean, I might be being really cynical there, but that's how
I think
it feels.
In a different aspect, looking at pay back in the day again, I was in a role of a supervisor. That role was specifically for women at the time, and they decided to bring men into the roles, the company that I worked for. And the first man that came in, we found out much later on that he was doing the same job as the female, but being paid a lot more for it. No apparent reason at all. So that was probably back in the 1980s. And I could not believe that I was reading a report just before COVID hit us, that females are still being paid 16% less per hour on average with most private companies. Even now. And sometimes the percentage is higher as well.
I think in terms of sexism, that seems to be where most of it takes place, is in the workplace. Because I think that's probably why I feel like I haven't experienced much of that, particularly in the last however many years, because I've been doing this. So it's one of them things, isn't it, where I'm not going to be sexist towards myself, but if I put myself in a working environment, would I experience it at that point? It's really strange to me. But again, going back to the stereotyping, I feel like I feel like we were talking, weren't we, about when we've been around other people, we won't name names, but when we've been around other people, you know, who are friends, family friends, that there is this definitely generational thing that happens where there's this separation between what the men will do and what the women will do. And we've always found that very strange. Well, I have always found that very strange, probably because of you never brought us up like that. I mean, you brought us up to be strong, independent women who can, you know, do anything that they want to do and don't need to rely on anyone for that. And so I think to be in that other kind of scenario where it's seen very differently, where we can't do certain things and only men can do it for us, it blows my mind that still happens, still exists. And
it's interesting as well, though, because the people that we're talking about, actually the men involved are actually probably the most polite people.
Oh, yeah.
And gentleman behaviour. They would quite open a door for you. They would open a car door for you. So although they've got this role where they see themselves as a man, doing man things, and the woman is cooking, etc., they would definitely be the politest people.
And that's why I've never seen it as sexist, because it never was malicious. It was the opposite. It was very polite and very friendly and lovely. And I was saying to you, wasn't I, that there's certain parts of, you know, going against sexism, obviously, you know, it's a fight that majority of us have regularly, and we've still got a long way to go. But I was saying downstairs that I kind of worry that we lose some of that chivalry in the process. You know, that I like men holding doors open for me. I like that. It seemed, you know, I don't see that as sexist. I actually just see that as being just a lovely gesture. And you know when there's a meal or something, or there's drinks being made, and everyone will go, ladies first. I like that. I think that's so nice. And when we're around older generations, that tends to still exist, and it makes me feel kind of warm and almost protected. And you don't really get that as much with my generation, because I feel like it kind of fizzled out, which I think is a shame in that context. So I think there's still some traditions that we could hold on to that aren't meant to be demeaning or malicious, like I said, but are actually there just to be pleasant and you know, treat people well. And I think those things we could hold on to.
I think so. And I think as well, though, I mean, I would always open a door for anybody. If I was going through a door, I would get up. If I was on a bus, I would give up my seat to an older person, a disabled person, etc. So I think it all comes down to very good manners too. I think that actually is being lost.
Well, I think it's been lost because I think people are afraid that if they do those things now, it will be seen as sexist.
Well, I think
because
it's
one of them things. It's like, do I dare do this for this person? Because am I going to be seen as you know, coming across as demeaning to them, when really I'm just trying to do a nice thing?
I think with all the rules, regulations, the stereotypes, and everything these days, you almost dare not speak or move. Truthfully, you know, you just can't keep up with the changes that are going on in the world, I think. And to me, it comes down to always be polite, always be helpful, whether it's you're a male or a female. It's very difficult. I think it's harder not to be polite. Truthfully.
Well, people go out of their way not to be polite, and I always think, how much energy is that zapping from them to do that? Because I just think it should be something that doesn't just come naturally to you, and you're almost preventing yourself from doing that for reasons I don't understand. But yeah, it is a question of, is something sexist or is it just manners and being polite? And it's hard to know the difference when you're kind of using that stereotyping within the sexist umbrella, you know. It's like, where is that line between what is sexist and what is just people, you know, either generational patterns that people haven't broken because it's what they were brought up knowing, or, you know, what is just polite and friendly and a nice thing to do for another person. So it is a very difficult thing to manage. But we were also saying as well that, you know, it kind of, even now, women are judged more harshly in society, aren't they? I mean, everything that you seem to do seems to be the wrong thing, you know, whether you're the quiet one who's too quiet, the loud one who's too loud, the fat one who needs to lose weight, or the thin one that needs to put on weight. You know, it seems like there's always something to criticise, no matter where you fall on that spectrum.
Well, the media attention doesn't help in that factor whatsoever. If you become successful, you're successful in the media for 2 minutes as a female before they start knocking you down, before they start looking at the way you dress, as Lauren says, the way you look, are you fat, are you thin, what's coming out of your mouth, etc. With a man, it seems to be completely different. He seems to be able to get away with, well, you only have to look at our government sometimes, don't you, really? You know, bumbling on about nothing. But they're not really pulled down as much as a female would be in that sort of position. And I don't understand it, really. I don't understand why people can't feel that equality, because it's feeling that equality.
Yeah.
You might have got to that position in some sort of authority, but gaining that respect from men in particular, I'm sorry, because I've had this numerous times in my life, it's very, very difficult. They seem to resent the fact that it's a female in power.
Well, some.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. I'm not
some.
Yes,
Yeah, because I think
I'm not judging everybody like that. But it still comes across, and again, the media don't help.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they don't. They set the tone, and I was saying this yesterday in my last video, that the media have a lot to answer for when it comes to what we think, what we believe, how we behave in society. They seem to kind of drill it into us where we should be at and what we should think, and, you know, how we should treat each other. And we're not even aware that that's happening, because it happens in such a gradual pace that we don't even recognise how it's changing us or influencing us. But yeah, I think, you know, the thing is do men experience their own version of sexism? I think that's an interesting conversation to have, because I always think things tend to go both ways. You know, it's like I was talking about yesterday about weight and body positivity, and I was saying, you know, men will have experienced their own version of pressures to look a certain way, but it's not talked about as much for some reason. I don't know why that is the case, but it just doesn't seem to get as much as attention as, you know, the pressures that are put on women in weight. And I think it's probably the same with sexism, that the same kind of stereotyping will impact men just in a different way as it does women. It's like we've just kind of done our own stereotyping. But, you know, it happens. We were saying, weren't we, how this same group that, you know, that we're friendly with, one of my friends didn't want to do the same roles as the men did. He wanted to do what the women were doing, but it was kind of seen as that's not allowed because he's a man and so he should go with the men, you know. And that to me is where it loses me. That's where I'm like, no, because we should be able to be interested in and do what we want to do regardless of what gender we are. And again, that's almost like the conversation that I was having last week with the women in football, and how, you know, sport shouldn't be gender based, should it? You know, you should be allowed to be interested in whatever sport you are interested in.
But again, one of the ladies then was pulled down. They'd just won. Fantastic celebrations 1 minute, and the next minute they're pulling apart one of the ladies for being gay and having a gay girlfriend, obviously. And being so negative about it. It's just so wrong.
It's behind the times, that, though, isn't it? I mean, my God, if we're not on board with that by now, then we'll never be, will we? Because it's just ridiculous. I mean, this is what I was kind of saying, was that the media seem to focus, when it comes to women, they seem to focus on everything but the success they've had in whatever that's in. So I've noticed it with tennis as well, when Wimbledon was on. Emma Raducanu, so she obviously... she didn't win, but she did, she did well to get there in the first place, and she's had a very successful few years. But when the newspaper article was talking about her, all they were talking about was what she was wearing. So they took the attention away from how she played the game onto what she was wearing. And I don't know many people that would write articles like that about men.
Mm.
If they're talking about men in sport, they're talking about how they play within the sport. They're not talking about what they're wearing. And I just find that happens so frequently, that when the attention always seems to be taken off the success they have onto something superficial or meaningless, in my opinion. And, I've seen it happen I remember when Gordon Ramsay's daughter was on, I think she was on Strictly Come Dancing a few years ago, wasn't she? I didn't watch it, but I heard about how there was it was like a 60-year-old man. It was quite well known, I think, at the time. But anyway, he wrote this article or spoke on some podcast or something about how she was chubby. And I thought, she's dancing really well on this show, and all you can talk about, the 60-year-old man, all he can talk about is, however old she was, 18-year-old girl, and how she's chubby. I think, would you do that if it was a man? No.
Exactly. And again, that goes back to different generation again. Yeah. I'm saying that. He's 60, I'm nearly 60.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't dream of doing that. I would not dream of criticising somebody on television for being, slightly overweight or a different nationality, disabled, whatever. Everybody has a right to achieve their goals.
I think some people feel threatened. I think that's all I can put it down to, is some feel threatened by, people's successes being matched. And that's all I can think, is that, it's almost a form, it can sometimes be seen as a form of bullying, isn't it? Of, how do bullies tear down the people that they tear down? They poke at their insecurities. They, they talk negatively towards them. And that seems to be what happens sometimes, is that when someone is successful, all some people can do is poke at what they've done wrong or what they're not doing well at. And that seems to be the theme.
I think in Britain it's always been like that. The minute you become successful, they can't wait to knock you off the pedestal.
Yeah.
Whoever you are, and it's terrible. It is terrible that you work so hard, as Lauren said, and it doesn't matter how you've achieved or how you've got to your achievement, or whether you're female or male. I mean, yes, I think males do get criticised as well. Look at Tom Daley. So successful in his swimming career, and because he's now knitting jumpers.
Which is seen as feminine.
And feminine,
right?
He's been pulled apart for that.
Yeah.
You just can't win, really. I think what you've got to do is be very thick-skinned. And I think you've got to put a smile on your face, not always, and not try very, very hard not to take it personally.
Yeah.
Because they are very insecure, these people that are doing the criticisms. The media's do it for sensationalism and to sell their papers, whether it be true or not true. Individuals do it because of their own insecurities and think that by bullying somebody else, because it is a form of bullying, is acceptable, and it just is not acceptable. The workplace is a more difficult one to define, really, or to sort out, because even with the Equality Act, which came in 2010, there are still loopholes. The Equality Act covers everybody. It covers race, religion, disabilities, sexual orientation, women and men. But it has so many loopholes. It still has loopholes. So if you feel as though you're being underpaid for the same job that you're doing for somebody else, and you go to see your boss, and your boss says, well, actually, it's because I like that person more. That's actually not illegal for your boss to say that. But it is illegal for you to say, or for you to go to a colleague and say, are you being paid the same salary as me? You're not supposed to do that because it's written into your clause in your agreement.
It's wrong,
there's lots of loopholes, so just be careful.
Yeah, it's wrong. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing to me as well. I mean, how to set up someone for a losing battle by targeting something about themselves that they can't change. You know, it's like, this is who you are, but because, and it's the same for race, and it's the same for, you know, lots of other different things about ourselves as well, is that this is who we are, this is how we're made up, and rather than celebrating that and being inclusive of that, you're immediately almost punished for it, when for no reason other than to keep certain people at the top and certain people at the bottom. And it's wrong, and it will never make sense to me, ever.
No.
Yeah. So anyway, it is an interesting subject, and if you've got any comments, please post them below, because we'd love to hear from you and read what you have to say about the topic. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you for joining me, Mum.
Enjoyed it.
And we'll speak to you again soon. Bye.
Bye.
I decided I was doing so good, and then I fucked up. We're going to start again.
Okay.
Hi guys, and welcome back to LVH Talks. I hope you're all doing well. So today I've got my mum with me.
Hello.
This is...
Do you not want me to do that?
Hi guys, and welcome back to LVH Talks. I hope you're all doing well. So today I have my mum with me. This is Julie.
Hi there.
Right, I'm just going to keep it rolling.